Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, Houston. I'm Yaneth Martell with NRL Mortgage, and we are live today, this afternoon at Campesinos. Good afternoon. It's a Friday afternoon. I know you guys are all ready to go out and have a wonderful weekend, but we thought we would come in and chat with you on this beautiful day. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am Kimberly. I'm with North American Title. Thank you for joining us. I am at the Galleria location, and we have a little bit of a change up. We are bringing you live coffee adventures on a Friday afternoon, which we never do. So we thought we would change up things a little bit because we have a very special guest with us today.
We do. We have a great special guest this afternoon, a wonderful personal friend of mine. But aside from that, he is just doing so much for our community. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Zaafran, who is the president of the Texas Medical Board. He is an anesthesiologist here in the Houston area and just very involved with really representing us and taking care of our needs when it comes to medicine. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Even though I'm drinking iced tea, it's really good enjoying a coffee with you guys. So,
well, cheers. Cheers to being here this Friday afternoon.
Yeah. We are having an amazing chai tea latte, so we're not far from the tea spectrum.
We decided to not drink as much coffee because we've already been drinking it this whole day.
Yeah, I think I've had, I don't even know. Is coffee really, well, why are we wearing red today?
Right.
Let's start off with that.
We are wearing red today because we want to bring awareness to a very special subject and one that we, while we were reading about why is everyone wearing red today, really is 8 seconds, and you would know this a lot more than we do, but every 8 seconds a woman is affected by a heart issue, a heart disease, in which I thought that was just such a huge number. So the red just means know your numbers, be aware, take care of yourself. We're always busy taking care of our family, others. So, and this goes for women and men. We just need to know our numbers.
Well, it's so important to make sure that you take care of your health in general and do the proper screening that we're all supposed to be doing. I've had a lot of friends who, by doing the proper screening, have found out that they have certain illnesses that had they had waited on it, it would have been detrimental to their health, whether it be breast cancer, just by doing their regular screening mammograms, doing their regular cardiac testing. Of course, everything is age appropriate, so just make sure that you see your primary care physician and do the screenings that they ask you to do. But one of the things that we do ask you to do from a public health standpoint, especially right now, is the flu vaccine. We are having a pandemic, which means that we're having a fairly serious outbreak. There's been schools that have had to close down, just simply because there's quite a few kids that have had the flu. Unfortunately, the bad side of all this is I think we're in the 30 plus now of children who have died from the flu. So this is a very, very serious strain. It's called the H3N2 strain. There's not a specific vaccine or a vaccine that is very effective against it, but the vaccine that is available right now at least will give you a certain amount of protection for it. So it can make whoever gets this kind of illness not be as affected by it. So we absolutely encourage everybody to get the vaccine. I know that there's a lot of concerns about vaccines in general, but it's still highly recommended, and it's something that we as public policy experts would encourage everybody to do so. If you've been exposed to somebody who has who has had the flu, the recommendation is that you and your entire family get prophylaxis for it, which is a medicine called Tamiflu. If you've been exposed but you're not sick, you take it for 10 days. You take it for once a day for 10 days. If you're actually sick or have symptoms that might be the flu, it's important to get in front of your doctor as soon as possible, because if you can get treatment early on, it can still make the effect of it fairly a lot lighter than it would be otherwise. And that would just be taking this exact same medication but at a higher doses for 5 days.
Okay,
so the earlier you do it.
Have it.
Well, if you have symptoms and you go and get checked, and they do the exam and they do the blood test and find out, or the swab, and they find out that you do have the flu, they can do this fairly quickly now, then you can start the medication. And it's much more effective if you catch it much earlier in the process of you actually having the flu.
Right. So for our viewers out there, and obviously we all know about the flu, but I think what would you recommend as far as like the symptoms that really are the red flags? Because a lot of people might suffer from, like, for instance, me last week, I had a cold, and I was like, stay away from me. But I ended up just having a cold, and so did my kids, and I did have sore throat. My son did have a little bit of fever, my daughter too, with sore throat. So of course, immediately I'm like, oh my God, what do we have? Right. So is there anything that you would say, these are the things you really need to watch out for, and what would be the steps?
So the first and most impactful thing is if you've been exposed to somebody who has the flu, and have any kind of symptoms whatsoever, because the symptoms are they can be very similar to a lot of other things, like the regular cold. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to tell and differentiate from one to the other. But if it looks like you're just fatigued, and you have congestion, fever, we've had certain folks who have had changes in their bowel symptoms, abdominal pain. So it can present itself as a rash. We've had a couple of folks who have actually had this unusual rash that just wouldn't go away. They've gone and checked it out, and they actually tested positive for the flu. So, but again, the first thing is that if you've been exposed to somebody who has the flu, whether it be at school or in the workplace, and you start having symptoms, I would just go and get it checked out as soon as possible.
Okay. What about the Houston area compared to the rest of the U.S.? How are we doing? Is it as bad here as it is in other states?
Yeah. California has actually impacted the worst out of all the states, but it's been pretty bad here in Texas also. Okay. I know in Houston we've had several folks who have been in the intensive care unit being treated for the flu.
And Dallas as well.
And Dallas as well. So it's something that you don't want to take lightly. I don't want to scare everybody about it, because again, it's not going to affect everyone out there, but just something to be mindful of, something to be aware of, and something to try to not brush aside and ignore. If you have these symptoms and it's not getting any better and you've been exposed, I definitely go and get it checked out.
Right. We want you to stay healthy and informed.
Yeah, I have two relatives that both kids have the flu right now in Georgia. And so they're both under 10. So I'm like, every day I drop my daughter off at school, I'm like, please don't touch anything. Wash your hands, wash your hands.
Absolutely,
don't drink after anybody. Don't use anybody's anything. But,
So is it too late to get the flu shot?
No, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, we haven't even hit the peak season yet. So I would still encourage everyone who hasn't, especially the elderly and the young who are more susceptible. The other thing is that I know that a lot of folks said, well, I'm young, I'm healthy, I can weather this out. H3N2 unfortunately attacks those who are the healthiest. It takes people who are healthy and young with a very strong immune system and uses that against them. So I would just be careful and cautious to not be overconfident that your youth and health is going to protect you from this.
Right.
It can actually work against you. So again, take the flu shot. Even if it's not going to be 100% effective, it's going to make it, whatever somebody might be able to catch, a lot less impactful than it would be otherwise.
Okay. Well, thank you for updating us. I know that was one of the things we really wanted to talk about and update you on. But we want to talk a little bit about your work, in the Texas Medical Board. So congratulations. As a friend of yours, and of course, just someone that understands the work and the commitment that you have to the medical community. I'm so excited that you were appointed by the governor to head this medical board, and so congratulations to you. I know you are the president until 2021, right? April.
It's 6 years.
6 years. So I think
that's the typical term.
It's another it's another 5 years, and because I was appointed last year, and you could be reappointed for one more term, which would be another 6 years. But the board is 19 members. It's 12 physicians and 7 public members. They're all appointed by the governor. We also oversee not just physicians in Texas, but physician assistants, perfusionists. Those are people who, if somebody's having a heart bypass, they manage the pump machine on the heart bypass. Those are called perfusionists. Acupuncturists are also covered by the medical board. Respiratory therapists and medical radiologic technologists. As far as physicians are concerned, we have over 80,000 physicians in Texas that we license. So it's a fairly large number. But part of our duty, of course, is to not only oversee the licensure of physicians in Texas, but also the whole disciplinary process. The Texas Medical Board is a complaint-driven agency, so anyone who might have any kind of concerns or just had a bad experience, but want to at least ask and find out if that's something that's outside the norm, they can always contact the medical board. We always vet anything that comes through, and if we need to, we can investigate it and go through that whole process.
Right.
But the other thing that we do as a medical board is we also look at rules that are that affect the medical community. So as the legislature last year passed many laws that affect the medical community, like the opioid crisis and addressing
Right.
that, what the medical board does is they take those statutes and we develop rules around them so that we can go to the medical community and say, here, not only is a statute, but here's how we're going to implement them.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit more about this opioid epidemic, I guess we can say, that we're having.
Or crisis.
Or crisis that we're having. Because I caught a little bit also, and I haven't watched a lot of TV lately. I've been so busy with just work and family and life. But also in conjunction with what the president or legislature wants to do with lowering the price of prescription drugs.
Yep.
Can you divulge or tell us a little bit more about what's going on?
Well, the prescription drug issue is another
A whole
big
other
issue in
issue.
itself.
Yeah.
That's
Another show topic.
Another show.
That's got its own, and that's actually a very serious issue that we're dealing with, is the shortage of many, many important drugs that are out there. But from the opioid crisis standpoint, one of the things that we always get concerned about is that there's always a negative connotation around opioid crisis, that there's a certain image that folks have that these are, heroin addicts or what have you. But that is really not the case. We are talking about folks who are not typically on opioids at all.
Right.
They might go and have surgery.
And
one of the statistics that we have is about 11% of folks who have never been on narcotics before and go have surgery, a year after their procedure, they are still on narcotics for no other reason.
Pain medication.
Well, specifically on narcotics. So the concern, of course, is that there are folks who may be prone to addiction or what have you, and we as a medical community are not necessarily doing a very good job of making sure that we are not overprescribing, or making sure that we manage that process in a way that is effective and doesn't turn folks who shouldn't have been addicts to narcotics who end up becoming addicts to narcotics. The other area where we see quite a bit of this is prescription drugs that folks have access to in their medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
If a physician prescribes somebody 30 days worth of narcotics and they only need it for 5 days and the rest is still sitting in the medicine cabinet, and a couple of months later somebody might be in some pain, and we get a little bit lazy about going and seeing the doctor as to why that may be, and we start self-medicating. And that can just start leading into a really bad cascade as to, are you really treating pain, or is it something that just kind of goes down a bad path? What we are trying to do is, number one, educate our physicians and our prescribers in general as to appropriate prescribing of narcotics. The best way to manage pain is to maximize non-narcotics and to minimize narcotics. There's a lot of ways that we can do that. We're even embarking on a lot of opioid-free surgeries. That's something that has become a very big topic in our community, and we're trying to educate our folks around it. But also just making sure that we do our due diligence in checking the prescription registry, so that when folks are coming into the emergency room or into the hospital, that we're aware of what are they taking, who else is prescribing it for them. And in 2019, it's actually going to be mandatory. It's state law that in the beginning of 2019, any prescription that is written for narcotics, except for cancer patients and hospice care, that this has to be checked. So it is something that we're paying a lot of attention to. Both the Senate and the House in Texas have put a task force together that is also going to be addressing the opioid crisis and looking at other things that we can do, common sense measures to make sure that we can do things that are not going to make our citizens here in Texas more prone to being on opioids unnecessarily and turning into a scenario where they're taking it without being able to get themselves off of it.
Right. So does the pharmacy, the pharmaceutical not the companies, but the pharmacists, your local Walgreens pharmacy, do you ever have, I came from 20 years of working in the dental industry, so I worked very closely with my doctors to make sure that we were not writing triplicates all the time. And at one point we just completely stopped writing triplicate prescriptions because because of abuse.
Sure.
And to where you can just write Advil, ibuprofen works great.
Right.
For a lot
Maybe
of things.
is there like a registry?
Right.
Or
Can you
So-
work close with that?
So there is actually, and that's what we're going to be mandated to be using. So one of the laws that has been passed in Texas in the 2017 session is that any physician who prescribes more than 50% of their patients narcotics could be considered or will be considered a pain physician, or their clinic could be considered a chronic pain clinic,
A chronic pain clinic.
which is not bad, but what
Right.
it means is that they'll have more oversight from the medical board. As I mentioned in the beginning of 2019, the registry is something that we are going to be mandated to check before we write prescriptions for narcotics, as well as muscle relaxants like Soma.
Right.
And yes, every time a patient goes to a pharmacy and gets a prescription for a narcotic or for something like Soma, we should be able to have access to that from what's called the PNP. That's the registry that we look at. So even if it's being prescribed by another physician or by just someone else in general, it's always going to be a physician, we can see that. So we can see when was it prescribed, how many did they prescribe, and we can at least ask those questions to the patient. You know, you shouldn't have run out of it already.
Yeah,
right.
Are you getting this and this and this from other folks?
Right.
You're taking a benzodiazepine, which is something like Xanax. That way we're a lot more careful and not prescribing a narcotic on top of other things that can actually create a lot more harm.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if they go to one pharmacy or not, or one
No.
doctor or not.
Okay.
They're able to track it, which I think will benefit.
Yeah. Every pharmacy has to submit these prescriptions to this registry. So regardless of which pharmacy they visit, we'll be able to have access to that data.
Okay,
It's,
good.
no, it's a great cross-referencing,
Yes,
you know, keeping our
absolutely.
citizens safe. I mean, it's for everybody's own good.
Well, that's true. We want you to be healthy and taken care of. So the reason we had Dr. Zaafran here today is because obviously we wanted to discuss these very important topics. But aside from it, from a real estate perspective, you know, the medical community just truly contributes so much to this economy. And I know a lot of our realtor partners and just partners across the industry work either with, you know, people in the medical center or like Dr. Zaafran, who's up in the Woodlands. But we can see when our economy is flourishing, whether it's in the oil and gas, we truly are lucky to have really thriving economies that it's not dependent on just one thing.
Correct.
So that's one of the things we were discussing.
Yeah. So the medical community, I would say, is the best buffer for our economy here in Houston.
Right.
We've been very blessed with it because every single time that we've had a downturn in our economy from the oil sector, which is very
Right.
cyclical, the medical sector has kept us well grounded and afloat. You look at the medical center itself. The Texas Medical Center is the largest medical center in the world. It employs over 100,000 employees, you know, I remember back in the late 80s and early 90s when they first built 288. You know, that area was the road to nowhere.
That's true.
But you look at it today out in Pearland and that
Right.
area, that's one of the main areas where a lot of folks in the medical center
That's
actually
true.
commute from. But one of the big changes that we've had in our city is from the 90s on, the medical center and the three big institutions in the medical center, CHI, which is Catholic Healthcare Initiative, which used to be St. Luke's, and Memorial Hermann and Methodist, have really moved that great medical center out into the suburbs and into the community. So really in every sector of the city, whether it be the Woodlands, whether it be Sugarland, whether it be Pearland, whether it be the Clear Lake area, you can actually find at least from every single one of the different healthcare systems a large satellite
Yes.
hospital out in those areas. So up in the Woodlands, within a couple of exits of each other, you have Memorial Hermann the Woodlands, you have St. Luke's the Woodlands, and you have Methodist the Woodlands, which just recently opened about
Right.
8 months ago, and you have a satellite of Texas Children's Hospital out there
Yeah.
also. So we've really taken the great service that we're able to provide out in the medical center and moved it out into the suburbs. We work in conjunction with our flagship hospitals in the medical center. So really the kind of service that you get out in the community versus going to the medical center itself is really second to none. And it's been fantastic, especially with the explosion of growth in the different areas. You have Exxon up in the Woodlands with its 10,000 employees. Definitely seen an impact up there. You know, in the facilities that we work in up north, we see a lot of those folks come and get their health care in those areas out there. And same thing just everywhere else in the city. So it's been fantastic.
Well, and I think that continues to drive so much of the growth as far as home prices, because you want to have that type of facility close to where you live as well. And we live in such a huge city that it does take a long time to go from one point to the other.
We lived off of Highway 6 near I-10 for a long time. We had 3 kids under the age of 10. I was so happy.
Call it the great buffer.
Right.
Because again, with any downturn in our economy from whatever other sectors out there, it's always helped keep us grounded, and we've always been able to take folks from all these other sectors and bring them into ours, which has always been growing.
Right. So one of the things that I was telling Kim, and you mentioned there's 80,000 or so physicians in the Texas area. But we were wondering, out of how many of those young doctors that maybe study here in Texas, Houston, wherever they are, how many do you think actually stay here and prefer practicing medicine here versus going out to other states?
Yeah. So, one of the statistics that's been well established out there is that folks who do their residency in the state typically stay in the state, and more importantly, they actually stay typically within the city that they've been actually practicing at. We're very blessed in that we have 3 medical schools right here in Houston. UTMB out in Galveston, which kind of Houston.
It's kind of Houston area.
We'll claim it.
But you have Baylor School of Medicine, and you have McGovern School of Medicine, which is part of the University of Texas. And the Board of Regents for University of Houston has also last year approved opening up a medical school for the University of Houston also.
Which is awesome.
Nice.
So go Cougs. We're
Go
very
Cougs.
excited for that.
I'm not a Coug, but go Cougs.
That's okay.
And they're wearing red really because of that too, so there you go.
That's exciting.
So
though.
all that's required out of that is just to have the legislature approve the funding for that,
Yeah,
which
right.
I don't think is going to be an issue. We've got a very strong representation here in the Houston community
That's true.
from our
exciting
representatives.
news.
So
That's really exciting.
So again, going back to what you said, having 4 medical schools
Right.
and having all the residency programs associated with that. So the vast majority of those physicians who graduate from those medical schools, but more importantly, graduate from those residency programs, are typically going to practice in the community every year.
Okay.
So we were really wondering, are we educating them and are they leaving us?
Yeah.
After
we
we
want
put
them
all
here.
that effort and we fed them all this great Tex-Mex food and given them the best restaurants, the best coffee shops
Yes.
in Houston, and then they bail on us.
No, but I think we do. Our city just offers so much.
No,
I mean, number
we're-
one, our state, we don't have a state tax. How can you say no
Yeah.
to that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you
Right.
definitely want to think about future earnings and just our housing. Obviously being in the real estate community, there's very few places in Texas even or in the U.S. where you can really get the pricing in housing as you do here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're very blessed in the sense that Houston still, for the value that you get for your house, with the large size of the city as we have it right now. I mean, anything that's comparable to our size. I mean, we're the 2nd largest size-wise, and the 4th largest, even though we're bumping up on Chicago population-wise.
We are.
Still the cost of living compared to New York or Chicago or Los Angeles is still really second to none. Having a large, fantastic airport, 2 airports, but one international airport where you can essentially fly to every single continent in the world direct from Houston. That for myself was a very big factor in wanting to stay here in Houston and live here after I graduated from UT. So it's certainly something to look at.
So you mentioned something before we went live. We were chatting about some post-Harvey tidbits,
yes.
and which I think is very, very important. As a lot of our viewership knows, I flooded 3 times in a row.
Oh my goodness!
And so tell us what you found out about our little reservoirs. I've lived in Houston for 30-something years. We moved here from Georgia, and I never flooded until 2015. And then I flooded 3 years in a row. And during that whole time that I've lived here, I've never seen the reservoirs release like they were.
Yep.
Right.
So I don't know if that was the first time ever
I think
historically,
it was,
or
from what
like Tell us what you know, Doctor.
Well, certainly, I mean, going back to Tropical Storm Allison, back in the early 2000s and moving on, we've had, some significant rain events, and it's really kind of pushed our infrastructure to the limit.
Right.
But, of course, after Hurricane Harvey, where we had our reservoirs flood areas that, typically wouldn't have flooded, but, still areas of concern. One of the things that we know that that Congress has passed is appropriating over $80 billion for relief for Texas and for Florida. And I know that Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz have assured the governor that implementation of building new reservoirs in Houston to relieve that significant amount of potential for flooding if there's any other new rain event. So not only building up several new large reservoirs, but also cleaning up all the bayous in a way that would beautify the city, but also make it a lot safer, I think is really going to help mitigate any kind of future events. So from the real estate standpoint, I understand that a lot of people have the unfortunate instance of having their houses flood. It did create an opportunity for folks, of course, to be able to go in there and rebuild. But just from the standpoint of worrying about an event like that happening again, building those new reservoirs, I think is going to really help mitigate that from happening. So
I think
we're very excited for that.
Exciting
That's
news.
good news for our city. It means we're going to do the things that we need to do to continue to grow as a city and take care of our citizens.
I don't believe there's any slowdown on the growth of our beautiful city here. I would never leave Houston. I love this town and everything.
Well, only for travel, right? Because that's one thing we do enjoy.
Only travel.
That's right.
We all like to travel. So
right. Well, that was one of the things that when we talked about the medical center, and going back to that, just because I think our realtors, as our partners work with so many different people in the city, I think one of the things that we are always asked is, how should we prospect to certain people in a certain demographic? Like if you're trying to work with people in a medical center, what can you tell us as far as, we have such a diversity in our city, number one, but I can imagine in the medical community it's even more so.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have two groups of folks in their career when we talk about physicians. Those who are residents and after residency, and of course, the ability and the wherewithal to be able to afford something as a resident is very different than afterwards.
Right.
So, I've seen in the years that I've been here that folks, as they're finishing residency, are very eager to look at expanding, especially in the areas that they're looking at working at. And the first thing, of course, is looking for a new house in the different areas out in the suburbs, which means looking for a realtor and looking for a banker.
Right.
And of course, bankers love doctors who are graduating because obviously there's a significant shift in income from residency to private practice. So it's something that you definitely want to be able to make yourself available to that demographic as they're moving from that stage of their life to a new stage in their life. But just that kind of mobility again with the new hospitals that are opening up. And as they're picking up their volume, you're going to see shifts in folks who typically are in downtown, physicians moving out into these areas so that they can actually practice in those areas and not have to go through the commute on a regular basis.
There's more opportunity.
Right, and that's what I was wondering. Do you find that as the doctors are able to move out and move closer to wherever they may live, that's important? You want to maybe live and work in your community and not have to commute into the medical center.
Right.
I know that's ideal probably for a lot of people. Yeah. But then again, you're going to go where the work is if the work...
Well, that's true.
And, especially us as physicians, where we, if we're on call, we have to move fairly quickly.
Right.
When I was looking for a house, one of the most important things for me was being close to a freeway. Having that close access. So those are the kind of small things that folks may not think about when they're looking for a house, but I think certainly a realtor who kind of points some of these things out, understanding the profession, understanding their needs, I think it gives you a certain value add when you're showing them different areas that they could be looking at.
And we work with lots of agents that are full-time agents that have told us that they're concierge. They will do all of that, find out the schools, the travel time for their jobs, and all that great stuff.
The other area that I think is also, if you look at the medical center, we are one of the centers that brings in folks from out of town or out of the country to have treatment, with MD Anderson, of course, and with others. And you always hear quite a bit about folks looking for short-term housing. It's always a little bit of a struggle for them because they don't understand the area.
Right.
But if you look at the demographics of where the majority of those folks are coming from, whether it be from Latin America or from South America, we usually have a lot of folks from Mexico, but from South America also, or from Europe or from the Middle East. And they're always looking for, where can I stay for 6 months or for a year while I'm spending here with my family looking for treatment and so forth.
Because they're working on their
I wonder
it does say that 10 million patient encounters per year.
It's a lot.
Is what the Houston area has. But going back to really targeting the real, the medical community, it's what you say. It's really learning. You're not just selling a home, or like me, I'm not just giving someone the opportunity to buy a house with a loan. It's about the lifestyle.
Yep.
Right.
And it's really understanding, what does your client want? What's important to you? Like you said, being close to the highway, needing to get to the hospital.
Right.
Those are the things you really need to know. Anyone can sell a house, anyone can sell a mortgage or a loan or a title company.
Right.
But it's really getting to know your client at a different level. So thank you for
and of course, physicians have access to different types of special loans.
That's true.
And again, dealing with different bankers, they have doctor loans or physician loans or what have you, and that allows you to be able to sell to a physician something that may be a little bit beyond what somebody in that income level would normally be able to afford, because they have a lower deposit or just better terms as far as financing. So again, something to be able to keep in mind or to point out to them, and have the relationship with bankers who may be able to.
He talks about me.
Giving them that level of concierge service,
Right.
And understanding with that profession what special products are available for them, given where they might be.
For the medical. I think you
very
said
true.
something very interesting, and I wonder if any of our realtors, I know we have a few watching.
Hi, everyone that's
Hi,
watching.
Jonathan.
Thank you.
Hi, Tuan.
We normally are live on Monday morning, so thanks for everyone that's watching us on a Friday afternoon.
And a few people are watching. But I have a question for our agents that are tuned in. Do any of them specialize in that little niche of people that need to move to the Houston area for a temporary basis, that are willing to help out those
For temporary
patients
leasing.
for temporary leasing? And are they doing any sort of specialized marketing for that?
Are they working with the hospitals that are encouraging those folks to come in? So.
It's kind of like a reload kind of thing, but not
Short-term,
short-term
depending
reload.
on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I would love to
know.
hear some feedback.
And there are
if
folks who
any
are willing to
agents-
pay a significant amount of money for that.
Yeah.
That's
True.
But to be comfortable for that 1 year or
Right.
Right.
all those
Well, they
months.
want to feel at home. They want to be,
Yep.
comfortable. They're going through a major ordeal, so they
Right.
want to be at peace.
And they don't understand the city. They don't understand the outline. They don't understand how they can be mobile, moving around.
Right.
So it's it's something
Which is a
that's really
challenge
needed.
here in Houston, because in other cities, there's a lot of public transportation.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other ways to move around. But here, you almost need a car. But thanks to you, Bert,
Or you have areas that are along the line of
that's true.
of our rail system in downtown.
Yeah.
And that takes them right through the medical center. So again, having that level of availability and kind of networking them into that would be helpful also.
That's true. So we want to ask you some fun questions now that we've discussed medical and
All
tell
the
us.
fun-
Yeah,
all the
tell us
fun
all the
work
fun. So tell us who's winning this weekend, Super Bowl.
Every time I bet against New England, I lose. And I love Philadelphia. I mean, Rocky, and I know they've always been putting those pictures out there, the big underdogs. But I was at the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
Awesome.
And we were there when New England was behind by 20 plus points, and still there was that feeling there that somehow at the very end they're going to make that comeback.
They're just incredible.
So and given that this may be Brady's last year,
Right.
I don't know.
Do you think he'll really retire?
He's got little
I don't know.
kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a beautiful wife.
And
Yeah. So I don't know. If I had to bet, I'd probably bet on New England.
Okay.
But-
That's who I'm going to go for. I know it's Brady, but what can I say?
I'm
like
always
him.
going to
And my
root for
kids
the
will kill me
underdog.
for saying that, but
Yeah, I know. It's well,
they still just feel bad because they always beat the Texans. But then again, we're going to be back to full par next year. We're going to have JJ back. We're going to have,
right.
Like a comment that I read earlier, who cares about Super Bowl? We won the World Series.
Well, that's true.
You know?
That's right.
Who cares?
And we're about to win the NBA championship this year.
Yeah,
that's true. I know that's one of the things that you enjoy doing on your off time. You're a big Rockets fan,
Absolutely.
so that's awesome that you continue to support our
Yeah,
PCs.
you know, we were in the playoffs. We attended a lot of playoff games back in '94, '95 when we won the championships back to back. Clutch
Hey, I
City.
remember that.
Clutch City. Yeah.
I remember cruising down Richmond that night.
That's where we had our parties back
We
then.
did.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had
a lot of fun.
We want to thank you again so much. I know our typical audience watches us on Monday mornings. We're going to post this again on Monday. But we wanted to accommodate you and have you here on Friday. And we, again, thank you so much for coming in. And did we cover all of your great topics? I know we have a couple things to talk about.
I think that was really what we wanted to just go over. We wanted to just bring you awareness. You know, obviously we strongly believe that you being healthy, you being aware just makes you a better contributor to our city and to the clients that you work with. So we always want to bring you great content and information, and absolutely the medical community is a community that you need to be involved in and understand, but not just from a personal level, but you know, you guys do such a great job every day going out there to take care of all the patients. So we want to be able to service.
Yeah, and it's important for us to have great speakers on, and you know, our town, our city here, know about the community and know about the medical. You're in the best city ever, you know, with the best medical center ever.
Right.
People, like you said, people come here. So
it's the largest in the world. So it's you know, if you need to have treatment, this is the place to be.
It is the place to be, and we want our people to stay healthy. So, you know, again with the new year, stay healthy, have your goals, you know, do all that fun stuff. I'm a big goal person, so I like that. In other news, though, I always have like a fun tidbit.
Well, that's
so
true.
You know,
we do want to go into
we do have some little fun stuff to talk about.
Events coming up too next week.
Yeah, some events coming up. So I have like 3 or 4 little things real quick. Next Thursday is the NAPMW, the bottle auction. Now, we're going to talk about medical stuff, then we're going to talk about auctioning bottles.
Yes.
So,
we are very versatile.
Yeah, it's wine, so it's good for the heart, right?
Yes.
You know what they say. So that's going to be at the Hess Club. So all the mortgage people, real estate people come out and do that. It's for a great cause. And then February 21st, again, I will be hosting Legal 1 and Legal 2 with Rob Cook. And then a fun tidbit, the Junction Bar and Grill that was at the corner of West Gray and Webster. Let me look at my notes. Closed last year. It's going to be remodeled and it's going to be reopening sometime this year. And it's going to be the 7th location of Ginger Man. So,
which is a very fun place.
Yes, so
that's
actually
residents used to go hang out with the Ginger Man.
The Ginger Man
down the street from
that little tidbit was for my brother-in-law, Gabriel. So I threw that in there for him. And then another thing, kind of health related, and I actually saved this on my phone, is we love cycling. And I was reading something. Oh no, did I? Oh, I probably didn't save it. Oh, this is me I didn't do it.
Well, cycling is good for you.
Oh wait, I found it. Sorry. But a comment of the day. If you guys don't know this or not, I love Swamp Lot. There's a lot of factual information on there. And it says, so this is the comment of the day. A new downtown biking main lane. Metro and the city of Houston should close Main Street to vehicle traffic and make it a bike pedestrian lane. It's terribly confusing and extremely slow compared to the lanes next to it and causes more harm than good. People love to hate on bike lanes, but I bet all the haters avoid driving on Main like the plague already. Which is true. So
that's true because Main
Street already has the rail.
Yep.
I avoid it because I think I'm going to crash into the train.
Right, that's true.
So why not close it and make it a pedestrian bike lane altogether?
But it is Main Street, so
That's
you kind of
for thought, though.
I guess. But yeah, that's true.
So
maybe on a weekend. I've seen a lot of streets closed, like around Market Square on the weekend, and it's this
like
big,
after hours.
Exactly, and it's a lot of fun to do that. Well, I do have a tidbit, but I am really for the realtors out there this weekend and for people looking to buy homes this weekend. Just a tip, one of the things that I've been noticing, I am a Spanish-speaking lender, so I do work with Spanish-speaking clients.
¿Usted habla español?
Yo hablo español.
Ay,
Sharif habla
muy bien.
francés.
Oui.
He speaks un peu français. No.
Un peu.
No, un peu. You speak very well. So anyway, one of the things that I want to give you as a tip, and I think it would save you a lot of time, when you refer clients over to me, one of the first things that I do, if they're Spanish speakers, we want to know what kind of programs are available out there. There's lots of programs for everyone out there. But if you ask a simple question, are you a citizen or are you a resident, that would help you so much, and it would help me so much to find the right program for our clients, because there's different down payment options that they would have to consider. So if they are a client that is working with a tax identification number, so not a resident, not a citizen, they will usually require 20 to 25% down payment. So it's good to have that conversation with your clients so they don't you set the expectations, and when I talk to them, they're a little bit more prepared for it. So just a tip as you go out, home shopping this weekend with your clients, as always, get them pre-approved first, call me, and you guys will go out there and make some great offers and contracts.
Yes, as you guys all know, Yaneth and I are always available on the weekends, on the evenings, to answer any of your real estate questions, your calls, connect you with our great partners, whatever we can do, assist you with the great medical community.
That's true.
Whatever we need to do to help you guys, we are here for y'all. And so we won't see you, but we will see you next Monday, because we're going to broadcast this program.
And if there's any questions that you think of between now and then, we can always go back to you, ask any questions, or to us. But we do have our guest on February the 12th.
Oh, yes. So I'll give you a quick update. Yes, February 12th, Randall Chestnut will be live with us. So we'll shout out to him. I have no clue what we're talking about.
Well, it's going to be, he's a social media
It'll be social media related, so it'll be fun. And then, so we'll put a little flyer out for y'all, tell you where we'll be. You're always welcome to come and join us live and have coffee with us here, wherever we're at.
Yes. So thank you again for coming and being part of our show. We really appreciate what you've shared with us. So until next time, we will stay caffeinated.
Stay caffeinated. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for being on the show.
Sure.
No, just a lot.